Welcome to As I Live and Grieve, a podcast that tells the truth about how hard this is. We're glad you joined us today. We know how hard it is to lose someone you love and how well-intentioned friends and family try so hard to comfort us. We created this podcast to provide you with comfort, knowledge, and support. We are grief advocates, not professionals, not licensed therapists. We are you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back again to another episode of As I Live and Grieve. I hope y'all taking care of yourselves. There I go with that y'all again. You'd think I lived in the South. Well, I did for a period of time. And that y'all word just, it's just so comforting to me. So, hey, y'all, hope you've been taking care of yourself. With me today is Lisa Espinoza. Lisa, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. So would you start us out today and just tell a little bit of your background, a little bit of your story to our listeners so they can get to know who is Lisa?
Well, the big, overhead view would be I've been married for 42 years almost, 4 kids grown, 2 grandbabies. That is really the most awesome thing that can ever happen to somebody. And 2 dogs, a weenie dog and a golden doodle that I hope won't bark while we're talking. And so that's kind of a little bit about where I am, my station in life. But I'm here because I have lost a child, and I'm in that group of people that no one ever wants to be in. So it's kind of, I don't know, surreal that we're having this conversation today, because just last night I got a call from my oldest son, and I could tell he'd been crying. He FaceTimed me. When he FaceTimes me, I always answer because I figure, he's got my grandbaby with him and she wants to tell me something.
Absolutely.
So I answered it, and I could tell that he had been crying. And he said, "Mom, I took my daughter to the jacuzzi tonight to just hang out. And while we were there, we met somebody who knew Chandler. And Chandler is my son that we lost." He said that this person knew Chandler, and we just talked about Chandler for a while. And he goes, afterwards, my daughter started asking me questions about Chandler, and her middle name is Chandler.
Oh.
She's named Uncle. He died before she was born. And she said, "Daddy, can we fix him?"
Ooh.
And it was breaking my son's heart.
Oh.
And, he said, "We're going to celebrate. We celebrate his birthday every year." And she said, "But I don't want to celebrate if he can't be there. Can he be there?" And so here I am today. We lost him on January 1st, 2019. And it doesn't get, as you hear people say all the time, it doesn't get easier. It just gets different.
Yeah.
So even these years later, we're dealing with, Uncle Chandler is not here, and you wish you could fix him, and you want him. She's like, "I want to meet him. Can I meet him?" She's 4.
Oh.
So that's my story. So my son, Chandler, he was on his way to work December 15th, 2018 on his beloved BMX bike.
Ah.
He was a crazy one. He was like a golfer, a dancer, a hiker, a surfer, a BMX biker. He did all the things that defy gravity and just loved life. So this BMX bike had been a bike that, he's done flips on and all kinds of craziness. And so he was riding it to work. He didn't work too far from the house. So as I hear somebody walking down the hall, it was close to Christmas. And so I yelled out. I didn't know which one of my kids it was, because they all have a CH name. So I'm like, "Hey, whoever you are, do you want to go with us tonight to look at Christmas lights?" I didn't know which one it was. It turns out it was Chandler. And he yells back, "Mom, I got to get to work. I work tonight." So I said, "Okay, I love you, honey." He said, "I love you, Mom." And a couple hours later, I was shopping and TJ Maxx for Secret Angels for work. And I get a call from a hospital, and they say, "Are you Chandler Espinoza's mother?" And I'm like, "Yes, what's wrong?" And they said, "Well, you need to get to the hospital." And I thought, okay, here we go again. We've been called by the hospital because he picked up a rattlesnake one time.
Oh my gosh.
We've been to the hospital because he cracked a cervical vertebrae body surfing. He had rib contusions. He was just that. He broke his collarbone falling out of the toy box when he was 3.
Oh.
So this is another one of those deals. And I said, "Okay, I'll be there." I said, "Is he okay?" And they said, "You just need to get here." So I thought, okay, well, I'll just go ahead. Now, this is how crazy. This is my life, which I'll just go ahead and pay, and then I'll go. But then something hit me, Because he said, your son's been hit by a car.
Oh.
And I thought, okay, he's been hit by a car. This may be different than all the other times. Just hit me. I threw the car. I ran to my car, got to the hospital. And that was the beginning of 18 days. Things did not progress as we hoped. We knew he would be paralyzed. They told us that. And then we were told that if he made it, there would basically be no functioning. Like he wouldn't understand anything.
Right.
And on January 1st, 2019, we lost Chandler. And I was writing. So I'm a writer. And a friend of mine said, you need to go on CaringBridge and update people on how he's doing. I don't want to do that. And she said, you need to do this because it could help people and you can process and they want to know how he's doing. So I started this blog on CaringBridge and was updating people every day. But I found I was processing my own feelings.
Sure.
There was so much. It feels like I lived 100 lifetimes in 18 days between the, there's hope. Oh, there's no hope. There's, no, that was, once he passed, I found out that he wanted to be a writer.
Oh my.
I said, you know what? I'm going to write. I'm going to keep writing every day for the next year as a way to honor Chandler, a way to process my own grief. And I had been getting like emails from people who were reading my blog saying, your words are helping me. So I said, okay, if I can help somebody else through processing this, it's a point of redemption in the whole dark place. So I did. I wrote every day for that whole next year. No matter what was going on, I wrote. And at the end of the year, I thought I want to publish this so that people who are going through grief can look at this in real time. The name of the book is First, Brush Your Teeth, Grief and Hope in Real Time, because this is not a retrospective. It's not, well, when I was about 3 months along, this is how I felt. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is, if you open that book to month 3, that's what I was feeling at month.
You're walking in your steps day by day.
Day by day. It's a chronicle, a daily chronicle. And what I've heard from those who've lost loved ones, and particularly who have lost children, is that it gave them hope. Like they could open it up like 2 months, 3 months down the line and see, okay, she's surviving. She even laughed. She even had some joy. Maybe I can do this. And so that's how the book came to me. And I just consider it such a privilege to be able to come alongside my fellow grieving moms. Or grief has so many shapes. People lose pets, and that's a whole different shape of loss. People lose a parent, husband. They all have a different shape, but loss is loss and grief is grief. And so to be able to be in this club that nobody wants to be in, but to provide some kind of hope and encouragement, maybe some structure, I just think it's a privilege.
Well, I love your perspective on it. And I personally think that losing a child is one of the most horrific losses. And then when you couple that with a trauma, it adds a whole nother level of complexity to it. Because through the trauma, you don't always have a chance to try to sort things out. If someone, child, spouse, parent, is suffering from a chronic terminal illness, you go through that, what they call anticipatory grief. You know, you start processing it, even though you might not realize it. But you start to think about life beyond when they're gone and your life after. And whether you start to make some plans or whatever, it just goes through your mind. It just passes through your mind. But when you are dealing with trauma, especially with a child who's been injured, I'm not sure. Were you ever able to process the fact in reality that he may not make it through?
At first, we were very hopeful, and, we're people of faith, and we just clung to that. We knew that he'd be paralyzed, and we were already making plans to retrofit our downstairs. We were already planning, okay, we'll put a downstairs bedroom, take away the step from the front door. We were already thinking through, and people were telling us, hey, we'll take him at our rehab, our spine injury. This spine was severed, and traumatic brain injury. And we were already making those plans. So we were looking at, and we knew at some point we're going to get a call that, okay, your son who's in a wheelchair tried to do a flip off of such and such. So now he's in the hospital. So, we were already having those conversations. But when we heard the words diffuse axonal injury, severe diffuse axonal injury, and the way they explained it was, it's as if someone takes a paintbrush and splatters the paint onto a canvas, and it's just splattered all over the canvas. That is the nature of the injury in Chandler's brain. It was into his brainstem. It was all throughout the brain. There was no part of his brain that wasn't affected. And the neurologist or the neurosurgeon said, we really had hoped that we would see something different by now, but this is what it is. So at that point, we knew we had to be realistic about what we're not. We're hopeful. We're, I think, on the whole, optimists. Right. We're also realists, and so we had to accept the reality in front of us.
Yeah, so hard. And I know doctors always like to, well, not always, but most times they'd like you to have that hope because they want you to be supportive of your child, of your loved one. But when it gets to the point that the doctors are telling you flat out, this is it, it's not going to happen. Yes. That is a reality that no one wants to accept. Did you have hope beyond that the doctors would be proven wrong?
No, we just, as a family, there wasn't one of us that was like, oh no, he'll be good. He'll be able. Every single one of us was like, this isn't Chandler. This is not Chandler. Paralysis is a whole other thing. Paralysis, I mean, I don't mean to minimize it for those who have had to go on with life and learn to deal with life having paralysis, but the extent of brain injury he had, that's a whole other thing. Yeah. So that was the piece that we just had to accept that reality.
Yeah. My husband died of brain cancer, so I understand. I understand how when the brain is impacted, it's just a mixed bag. You don't really know from one day to the next if there's going to be something different. And I remember for him, he was in the hospital. He'd had surgery to remove as much of the tumor as they could. It wasn't to cure him at all because the particular type he had was an incurable cancer. It was glioblastoma.
That's not a good
we were hopeful that he at least was going to be able to have a little bit longer to live. The big question was quality. But when he came to and he was just blabbering unintelligible things, I was terrified at that moment. Fortunately, within 24 hours, that cleared up. And he did pretty well and lived another 8 months. But with the brain injury like that, it's just so difficult, really. For a while, they have to wait for the swelling in the brain to go down before they can better evaluate it. And that time to wait. But you didn't have very long with Chandler. Once that happened, you didn't have very long. And he was probably aware of your presence and everything, but just couldn't let you know that you knew it. Well, that I know in a lot of days, now, for a lot of families, something like this would just, it would fragment everybody, What was your family's reaction? Did y'all pull together?
Oh, man.
Or did y'all struggle individually?
I don't even have words for how my kids stepped up and showed up for each other. And I'm probably going to get emotional here. When they finally were able to see Chandler at the hospital the night of the accident, he'd been in surgery. They brought him up to the ICU. I'd gone on in to see him. So I was already in there. And then when they came to the waiting room and told my kids that they could go see their brother, I was told that they held hands and the door opened as they walked down the hall together.
Oh my gosh.
And you couldn't ask for something more from your kids. They stood by their brother. They stood by each other. They have shown up in the most meaningful ways. They've each dealt with it in their own ways. I have my book. My middle son has written songs and just released an album recently. All songs about Chandler.
Wonderful.
That's one way he processed.
Wonderful.
We've all processed differently, but we never get together without mentioning Chandler's name. And it's just as natural. If we're playing a game, somebody will say, oh, Chandler would have said this. Oh, Chandler would have done that one. If we're out anywhere and somebody has no shirt on, they'd be like, oh, that would be Chandler because he's known for never. He was like the Matthew McConaughey of the Espinozas. He just always found a reason to not have a shirt on.
That's really nice.
So we talk about him all the time. It's not nobody's ever been like, oh, well, if we talk about it, it'll hurt. Well, it's going to hurt.
Right. It's going to hurt. And it's going to hurt forever.
Forever.
Yep.
And so, and then things like this, like we started with, will come up where my son's daughter is saying, where's Uncle Chandler? Can I meet him? Can we fix him?
Right.
So she said to me on this phone call, Mimi, he got hit by a car on his bike on his way to work. And she was sad. She's bored, sad. So the worst part of it, I was with a friend last night who lost her husband suddenly a few years ago. And I said, the worst part of it, I think, is seeing your kids hurt. I mean, I miss Chandler, there are no words. But when I see my kids hurt, and now my grandbaby, I mean, that's just...
It's a double and triple layer of grief.
It's the layer.
Because you're grieving what they are missing out on as well.
100%. Yep. Chandler would have been the fun uncle.
Yeah. How old were your other children when you lost Chandler?
I was trying to do math in my head, but I think those days have passed. I think in general, my daughter was a junior in high school.
Okay.
And then my middle son was late 20s, 27. Okay. And then my other son was 31. Okay. So, one of my sons was married, and I was so grateful because he had his wife to lean on, and she was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then, but our family was so, they came around to each other and still do. And if somebody's having a hard day and we're crying, then we cry.
Yeah.
So it's just...
That's wonderful. And please pass along to your son in his role as daddy that I am so impressed with how he is being truthful with his 4-year-old, how he's not trying to fabricate a story about...
100%, yes.
He's basing it all in reality.
Yes.
And I think that alone is going to help his daughter grow up understanding and accepting that grief is a part of life.
Absolutely.
It is so difficult for children who have had everything kind of masked for them. And I know I kind of grew up in that generation where, it's really, you didn't go to funeral homes. You didn't participate in any way, even in a wake or a family dinner after the funeral home. You just didn't participate because my parents were protecting me.
Yes.
I don't think you really should protect from the truth.
Right.
You may need to be very selective with your words, but please let him know that I find that very impressive.
Oh,
kudos to him. Kudos to you for raising your children in that manner. So I just, that blows me away. Now,
I did say, honey, what you told her, the way you handle it, because he was like, Mom, I don't know if I said the right things. He was crying, he was sad, and he told her about Chandler and all these things. I said, honey, the best thing that you can do is you did not tell her answers, that just pat answers. You didn't give her the right response. She saw your pain. She cried with you because she felt your pain and just talked about Chandler and told her about Chandler. And and one of the things that he said to her that I thought was really, I said, son, that's, I would have never thought to do that, but I thought it was helpful because she's just 4. And he said, you know how you have thoughts in your head? They live in your head, but they're real thoughts. But when your body goes away, when your body is not here anymore, that part of you is still, because that's our system of belief, that is still exists. So Uncle Chandler, he's still somewhere. He's just not in that body anymore. Right. But the way he explained it, to say that, those thoughts in your head that you can't see, we can't see them. They're just in your head. But that's that kind of energy. That's what is still in existence. It's just not in Chandler's body. So we can't see. We don't know. We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I read a couple things in your profile, and I kind of wanted to pull a couple of those out. What was, if you can recall, the most helpful thing? People are full of comments, at a funeral, and we know that most of it's because they're so uncomfortable, they don't know what to say, and they feel they need to say something.
Yep.
Because they feel silence is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So we hear a lot of really stupid stuff. Mm-hmm. In fact, I have a good friend who's written a book called Stupid Shit People Say to Grievers.
I love that.
And it's just full of that. But was there anything that someone said to you that really helped you?
Honestly, the things that there were no like words of wisdom that somebody would write down in a book that I could recall. The things that were the most, I will say, like one friend of mine said, "Can I bring you a juice from Nectar, juice place near us, and just sit with," and this was like a week after, Chandler had passed. And I said, yes, please come and just sit with me. And she looked at me and said, "I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to do. And I don't know what to say. This is just hard." That is helpful. That
again, the truth,
the truth. I don't want to hear he's in a better place. I don't want to hear there's a reason for everything. I don't want to hear any of that. I just want you to acknowledge that my son is not here with me anymore. And I don't like it. It's hard. It's gut-wrenching. So don't give me your little pat answers. So it was the people who really just were like, this sucks. This sucks. And there, the presence, really the word presence is what stands out to me. People that can, and I discovered there are people who can't be with others who are hurting.
Very true.
And that's not about you. That's about them. Not to judge them, but for whatever reason, they just can't sit with someone in their pain. So I learned that as well. One of the stupidest things anybody said to me. And I will say, and I talk about this in the book, I wasn't trying to be the grief Nazi and slam people for you. Even when people would say, "How are you doing?" and they'd go, "Oh, that's a dumb question." I'd say, "No, it's not a dumb question, because maybe today I'm doing really great. Or maybe today I'm doing great. How are you doing it's not a dumb question." But someone, bless her heart, was telling me about someone that she knew that, and I'll try to keep this vague in case this person hears it.
Okay.
This person said, "I know someone who had one kid and they lost that kid." And I thought, God, look, they have one kid and all these other people have 3 or 4 kids. And I kind of wanted to slap them.
Yep.
So you know what? You're right. What's one when you got 3 more?
Yeah, you've got replacements, right?
So what's the difference? That was the number one stupidest thing.
Oh, that would hurt to the core. Yeah,
I just kind of, I took I considered the source and thought, I don't know that she's capable of much more. But thankfully there was not a lot of that.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, you must be the good community or surrounded by a good group of friends in your network.
Yeah.
And if you to say, just imagine the listeners out there listening to this episode right now, and they're around the world. We have listeners in over 100 countries around the world. So if you were just to say something to another griever out there who has lost a child, what would you say to them?
Oh my goodness. I would say, first of all, I am sending you huge hugs and sending you love, because I know that your heart is broken. There's a piece of you that is gone, and there's no way to replace that. There's no way you can heal in a sense, but you will never get past, I am a person who's lost a child. You will always be the person who lost a child. But what I want to encourage you in is to say, you can experience even joy after losing a child. And I don't mean jump up and down, happy, slappy.
Right.
But you can find moments of joy. And when you do, you honor your child that you lost. I had a friend made a ring for me that says WWCD, because I'd written in what Chandler do. And I wore that ring, and I remember putting my hands in the sand at the beach and looking at the ocean where you love to surf, and the sand just like trickling over that ring. And I thought, Chandler, you want me to have these moments of joy. You want me to move forward in my life. It would not honor you for me to hunker down, to stay in your room, to never move things around in your room, to create like a mausoleum, like a cloistered
memorial, an altar almost. Yeah.
Yes, you would not want that. You would want me to, and so that's what I would encourage you in. Feel what you need to feel when you need to feel it. By all means, let people in when they say, "What can I do to help?" Think of something that they can do to help, because it will bless you and them. Don't try to be alone. Don't cloister yourself away. Find meaning whatever it is, just in this day. Well, first of all, brush your teeth. If you're having trouble,
I love that.
if you're having trouble getting out of bed, because I get it, you wake up and say, how can the world continue? I've lost my child.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to put your feet on the ground and go brush your teeth. First, brush your teeth. And then after you brush your teeth, maybe you'll have the energy to go into your closet and grab some clothes. And maybe if you get dressed, you'll feel like going down the stairs and getting a bite to eat, maybe. And maybe then you'll sit on the couch and think about, do I need to take a walk? Do I just need to sit and think about my child? What do I need? What will serve me right now that will help me and not harm me? But first, brush your teeth. Just take a first step. Just take a first step. And when you take that first step and the next and keep showing up for yourself, you are showing up for your loved one. You're showing up for their memory. You're showing up to honor them by saying, I will move forward in my life and I will find meaning as a way to honor you, even though I am grieving with every pore of my body.
That's wonderful. Very eloquent words. Thank you for that. One last question, and then we're going to get ready to wrap things up. Is there a right way to grieve or a wrong way to grieve?
Yes, I did the wrong way when I lost my mom. I was 18 and she died of lung cancer. And I thought if I ever lost my mom, I would just crawl in a hole and die. She was my best friend. We hung out. She was the most amazing human. And she died of lung cancer. And so I did all the wrong things. I minimized it. I minimized this death by saying, oh, she's in a better place. It's just her body that's gone. Her spirit's alive. I put her makeup on her in her casket. I'm 18. Put her makeup on her in her casket, sang at her funeral, did not cry for probably 3 weeks. And then it started to come out sideways.
Yeah.
Because it's a body, but it's the body that rocked me and fed me and hugged me if I had a hard day at school and gave me the mom kisses that are unlike any other kisses in the world. The unconditional warmth of those hugs and her voice. That's the body that I lost. Yes, it was a package for an amazing spirit, but I lost that body. She could no longer be in my life in that body. And so when all these years later, I lost my son, I've lived some life, had some education, and I just knew there's a different way to go about this. I was far more settled in reality and willing to say this sucks and I need all the people that want to come around me and help me. I'll take it. It's just far different experience. So I would say the wrong way is the way that keeps you out of touch with reality that will actually help you heal and move forward.
Interesting. And a great summary, actually, for that. I recently had a guest on the podcast and she said, first of all, she thanked Megan Devine for the phrase, it's okay that you're not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, my phrase is that it's okay to be okay.
That's
as you're grieving.
And I found that.
To be okay.
Yes, I think that's why I say you can find joy even in your grief. And people are afraid, like how can I do that? Because they died. But I love that. It's okay to be okay.
To be okay. Yeah. Not, it's okay to be great. It's okay to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, kind of keep it simple, if you will.
Love that.
Well, I have to say, I can't wait to get a copy of your book because memoirs are my favorite thing to read anyway. I absolutely love the title. Time goes way too fast when I do these podcasts, but this is the time in the episode where I actually turn the microphone over to you for a little bit and let you speak directly to the listeners without me interrupting with questions.
Okay.
Let them know a little bit more about your book, your blog, anything you want to tell them. This is your turn to share. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I appreciate that. Like I said, it's a privilege for me to come alongside as sort of a companion in the journey of folks who've lost someone. And so what I hope for my book is that if you are grieving or if you know someone who's grieving, what I've heard is that first brush your teeth is like a trusted companion because it's real, it's raw, there's no pretty bows on it, but it's an encouragement and an inspiration for people who are just trying to figure out how do I put one foot in front of the other. So I would encourage you, if you're that person who's grieving or know someone who's grieving, it's First Brush Your Teeth, Grief and Hope in Real Time. You can get it on Amazon. I also have a website, lisaespinoza.com. And I do grief coach. I'm a certified grief counselor. I do grief coaching. I'm a certified yoga teacher. So I use movement as well for healing through movement and breath. But I would love to hear from anybody and just listen to your heart and just be able to come alongside in just sharing those words.
Super. And our listeners know, but I'll just repeat it again for everyone, that the contact information to reach Lisa will be in the podcast notes. So you don't have to worry about grabbing a pen, writing things down. Just check the podcast notes and reach out to her. I think it's very interesting that so many guests, my podcast, invite people to just reach out to them, just to let them know how you're doing. Mm-hmm. Do you need some support? Do you have a question? Anything like that. And you won't find that, I don't think, in a lot of podcasts. I believe it's unique to grief because we know that grief is ugly. There's no other word for it. It's ugly. It hurts. It's painful. It's erratic. It goes on forever. I've said time and time again, I'm going to grieve until the day I die. Mm-hmm. The grief takes different shapes. I never get over it. I just kind of fit my life around it a little bit. But every so often, it rears its ugly head, and I have a really rough day. Those are usually around the anniversaries or holidays or just a special memory that gets triggered. And those days especially, you need somebody that you can reach out to. And for me, it's my two daughters. I can reach out to either one of them, and they're like my best friends. They're there to support me. And generally what will happen, and even my son-in-law will do this, he will just put a bottle of hot sauce out, and that will always make me smile because Tom loved hot sauce. We had an entire cupboard full of hot sauce bottles, all unopened, because he bought them thinking he wanted to taste them. And never opened. I thought it would always make a great art display, in all honesty. Yeah. So I'm community. I talk about taking care of yourself, and that's one great way that you can do that. Is look at your network. If you were having a really bad day, do you have someone to reach out to? You should. If you don't, reach out to me. Reach out to someone on the podcast that you really enjoyed hearing their story and hearing about them. Just reach out. We're there for you because we're all in this together.
Absolutely.
So finally, I have to say farewell again until next time, and to remind everyone, wherever you are in the world, that I so appreciate you taking the time to tune in and listen, whether it's week after week, whether it's sporadic, or maybe this is the very first time. But there's a lot of episodes out there for this podcast, As I Live and Grieve. Check them out. I've tried to make the titles somewhat engaging, maybe to pique a little curiosity. Listen to a piece of it, listen to the whole thing. It's entirely up to you. It's there as my gift to you. And again, take care of yourself. Catch you next time as we all continue to live and grieve. Thanks again, Lisa, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. Do you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, or do you have a question from one of our episodes? Please email us at info@asiliveandgrieve.com and let us know. We hope you will find a moment to leave a review, send an email, and share with others. Join us next time as we continue to live and grieve together.